beat-em-ups to adventure games, nothing gets the adrenaline rushing quite like a great boss battle. In this episode, we'll be taking a look at 5 of my all-time favourite boss fights. Whether it's hand-to-hand combat, wielding swords, or dodging homing missiles, you'll need all your skill and strategy to take on these unforgettable foes. So let's take a trip back to the 16-bit era to deal with some aliens. Let's begin with one of my favourite scenes from probably my favourite run and gun game of all time, Contra 3: The Alien Wars. This game was absolutely stunning for its time, pushing the Super Nintendo to its limits. The moment you hit stage 3, you've already taken on a mutant tortoise and a robot spider, but it's at the end of this stage that you're greeted by not 1, but 2 intimidating robot skeletons. Just when you think you're in the clear, the real menace makes its entrance. Big Fuzz. This mechanical giant rips through the walls, immediately dominating the screen and demanding your full attention. The sheer scale of Big Fuzz was mind-blowing, and even though his attack pattern is fairly predictable, it's the spectacle of the encounter that makes it so memorable. From the moment he pulls apart the wall, it feels like you're in for trouble. The boss music ramps up, adding to the tension, and you just know you're in for one of the most iconic boss battles ever. He fires homing projectiles from his eyes, forcing you to constantly stay on the move while firing away at his giant head. As long as you keep moving clockwise, you'll be safe, but just keep an eye out for those timed explosives, as they can easily catch you off guard and cost you a life. They even managed to squeeze the boss fight into the Game Boy version, which was a great achievement, but unfortunately the section with the 2 robots was removed. Big Fuzz returned as a boss in Operation Galuga, which was a great bit of fan service and a reminder of just how memorable this boss truly is. What could be more intimidating than facing off against a man dressed as a samurai warrior in a boxing ring? This is exactly the situation Guy, Cody and Hager find themselves in as they finish battling their way through the Mad Gear thugs on the train in Stage 2 of Final Fight. After a relentless onslaught of enemies, they're confronted by none other than Sodom, or Katana if this was 1992 and you were stuck playing the censored Super Nintendo version. Whether you call him Sodom or Katana, one thing is for certain, this boss makes an unforgettable entrance. Sodom isn't your typical Mad Gear brawler. Dressed as a samurai and wielding a pair of deadly katanas, he is an absolute powerhouse in the ring. His quick strikes with dual swords keep you on your toes, so you have to be quick, moving around the ring and timing your strikes just right. There's no room for mistakes, as Sodom can quickly get up after being knocked down and turn the tide of the fight with his devastating dash attack. Sodom's story didn't end in Final Fight. He was such a fan favourite that he later crossed over into the Street Fighter Alpha series, bringing his unique style into the world of fighting games. For me, Sodom is one of those characters who perfectly captures what made Final Fight so special. Larger-than-life enemies, intense battles, and a world that felt gritty but full of that classic Capcom character. The first time you come face to face with Robotnik in Sonic the Hedgehog is one of the most iconic moments in gaming history. Dr. Robotnik is a villain so tied to the franchise that his appearance at the end of Green Hill Zone Act 3 feels like the start of something bigger. Your first real showdown with Sonic's nemesis. Now to be honest, this isn't the most difficult boss battle you'll face in a Sonic game. The pattern is very straightforward. Robotnik swoops in his hovercraft, swinging a wrecking ball, and all you have to do is dodge it and jump at him when the opportunity arises. Even if you mistime your attack or get hit, there's usually a handful of rings you can pick back up to stay in the fight. But here's the thing, it doesn't matter that it's easy. The thrill of going head to head with Robotnik, especially after sprinting through the vibrant and memorable Green Hill Zone, is something that never gets old. The moment that the boss battle music kicks in, you know it's time. There's something about that familiar tune that amps up the tension no matter how many times you've heard it, and as the wrecking ball swings back and forth, you start to find the rhythm of the fight. You know Robotnik's moves, but there's still an excitement in outmaneuvering him. Each hit on his hovercraft feels satisfying, especially knowing that you're one step closer to freeing all those poor animals trapped inside his twisted machines. Sure, this fight is far from the most challenging battle with Robotnik, and later games in the series would throw much more complex and creative boss fights at us, but there's something undeniably special about this first encounter. It laid the foundation for the legendary rivalry between Sonic and Robotnik. The anticipation of reaching the end of Act 3, taking him down and freeing those animals is pure nostalgia. The Egg Wrecker, as it's commonly known, reappeared a few times, most notably in Sonic & Knuckles, piloted by Metal Sonic. For me, this battle from Sonic's first game is less about difficulty and more about how this iconic showdown at the end of the Green Hill Zone set the stage for every future battle with Robotnik. Of course, any game featuring those heroes in a half shell wouldn't be complete without a battle against Bebop and Rocksteady. These two villains have been causing havoc for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles ever since their debut, and their transition to the arcade game was nothing short of legendary. In the game, you get the chance to face these two individually, but the real challenge comes when you have to take them both on at the same time. When the duo hit the screen together, it makes for an unforgettable boss fight. They wait behind a door ready for you to approach, and when the door opens, they begin charging at you. If you're not quick enough with your jumps, you'll find yourself sandwiched between them. Time it just right, and you can watch as they ram into each other. It's one of those moments in the game that really sticks with you, especially around that huge arcade cabinet when you're lining up coins for more credits and trying not to get flattened. Surprisingly, Bebop and Rocksteady didn't feature in the arcade version of Turtles in Time, which was very disappointing. They did return in the Super Nintendo port of the game, where they made their grand return dressed as pirates. Since then, they've had regular appearances across countless Ninja Turtles games. Their combination of humour and menace has made Bebop and Rocksteady one of the most beloved villain duos ever. No matter how many times you face them, that feeling of dodging their attacks and delivering that crucial last hit never gets old. The first time you hear that battlefield theme in Golden Axe, you know it can only mean one thing. It's time to face off against those towering, hammer-wielding giants known as the Bad Brothers. As bosses go, these guys made an immediate impact, not just because of their size, but because they were a real test of your combat skills at the end of the game's first stage. Armed with massive hammers, the Bad Brothers stand waiting, daring you to make the first move. A fully charged magic attack and a few well-placed strikes are enough to take them down quickly, but it's the intensity of the fight and the atmosphere that make it special. The battlefield feels alive, and this boss fight is the perfect ending to the first stage, setting the tone for the epic journey ahead. The Bad Brothers didn't fade into obscurity after their debut. They returned in various forms across other games in the series, including the Axe Battler RPG on the Master System and the arcade exclusive The Revenge of Death Adder. Surprisingly, neither of the Bad Brothers were selected to appear in Golden Axe The Duel. Given their size, their presence, and their nostalgic connection to the original, they seemed like a perfect fit for the roster. Despite their absence, they've remained a big part of the series, thanks to their memorable first appearance. For me, the Bad Brothers encapsulate everything that made Golden Axe such a legendary beat-em-up. Their intimidating size, their heavy-hitting attacks, and the iconic music all contribute to one of the most memorable boss encounters ever. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below and subscribe to the channel for more retro gaming content.